Culture and class in the church.
Good morning, class. This video is about the differences between classes within our society. They deal with cultural issues that affect working, middle, and upper class people and what they are. The intention of this is not to judge anybody or to say that one class is better than the other, but simply to explain them so that as a pastor you may be able better to deal with people of various classes or cultures.
First, let's clear away some of the misconceptions about class in American society. Class is not about how much money you make, but it's about attitude, hopes, and dreams. We do not have caste distinctions in American society, though we do have class distinctions. In a class society, the lines between classes are often fuzzy, and people are constantly moving between the three classes. In a caste society, there is no movement between castes. Your fate is decided by birth before you were ever born and never changes. This is not the same as in our culture, where your class can change and often does change. It's not about worth. Nothing in this video should be construed to suggest that one class is better than another class, only that there is a difference of perceptions among classes. These perceptions are unconscious. They are not chosen, but absorbed by upbringing and associations with others. This triangle represents the three classes in our society, upper, middle, and working classes. As you notice, the working class is by far the largest. The working class includes dock workers, farmers, but it also includes people such as teachers, are usually considered working class. The middle class generally are the professionals, the artisans, doctors, lawyers, and other people who make a living with special skills with their hands. The upper class are the people who really don't need to work. They're the people who have money and have often had it for generations. The working class makes up the majority of people and has several prevailing attitudes that are found among it. First of all, there is a static view of self in society. Working class people perceive themselves to have limited opportunities for advancement. They expect themselves and their families to stay in the same social strata for their entire lives. They do not expect to advance very far out of it. They have short-term and not long-term goals. Since they do not expect to advance very far, they don't try. Instead, they put short-term satisfaction over long-term goals and satisfactions. Third, they value work over education. Since long-term advancement is out of the question in many cases, there is no point in continual education or improvement. Education is only used when it is utilitarian and is usually focused simply on getting a job. There's a general acceptance of others among working class people. Working class people are less concerned about personal appearance than other classes. Since they do not expect to advance, there is no need to compete over appearance for jobs. A person is judged by how they do the job and what kind of person they are, and that's all. They tend to be the least judgmental of the classes. They also have fixed ideas. Social, moral, and religious views tend to be unchanging among the working class. Since the rest of the world is static, their world is static and unchanging, attitudes about the world change very little as well. They do not challenge the ideas they're born with unless there's some good reason for challenging them. Working class churches, that is, churches that are made up mainly of working class people, have certain characteristics. First of all, they are less formal than other churches. They are not concerned about dress or social status or appearance. They are not concerned about how nice the building looks or how nice the people look. They have trouble finding leaders. They usually have an abundance of workers. Most of them are not managers, but they're used to being managed. They have neither the ambition nor the experience for church leadership. They tend to be more absolute in their pronouncements. They prefer simple, unchanging answers and often do not have the patience for complex theological discussions. The exception to this are churches which have many teachers or educators who are also considered working class, but are also used to working with ideas and like to talk about them. Working class churches want a strong pastor They want a pastor who will tell them what to do, what to think, and how to believe. They admire somebody who can give orders because they like to follow them. The middle class, in contrast to this, is distinguished mainly by its attitude and not its income. But the attitude they're distinguished by is an attitude of upward mobility and self-improvement. Middle class people expect to be upwardly mobile. They have learned from childhood that there's virtually no limits on what they can do or what their children can do or what they may accomplish, and so they expect to rise high. They expect more from their children than working class people tend to do. Middle class people plan for their children to reach a higher level of education than they do, and they drive their children to achieve and to become leaders. They train their children to be leaders and not just good workers. They are goal-oriented. They set both long and short-term goals. Everything in the middle class is a competition. Every one of them is focused upon being better than the others. For that reason, they care about their personal appearance. Middle-class people do judge a book by its cover. They dress to impress wherever they go. They are more likely to be found in health clubs improving the looks of their body. They have plastic surgery. They dress stylishly. To them, appearance is a kind of advertisement of what's on the inside, revealing their own drive and ambition. Middle-class people are very class conscious. They want to be with people who are considered more successful than they are. They do this so that they can network and so that they can learn from them how to be more successful. They seek out leaders for special attention. Middle-class people value education in all of its aspects. Middle-class people don't want to just know information or skills. They want to develop their minds along with their knowledge. They don't want to simply know what to think, but they want to know how to think so that they can become more competitive in the workplace. They seek to be leaders and not followers. They all want to have a say in the decision, and they tend to work cooperatively together and not simply to take orders, and they expect to have their voices heard. Middle-class people tend to overspend. Middle-class people do not value savings but efficiency. They would rather pay people to do a job than do it themselves, giving them more time for more important things such as getting ahead. Middle-class people demand proof. Middle-class people don't want to just take people's word for it, not even the pastor's word, nor are they impressed with authority, but they want to figure things out for themselves, and they want leaders who will give them the opportunity to have input and to figure things out. Middle-class churches, that is, churches that mainly have middle-class people, have certain characteristics. First of all, they're appearance conscious. They really care about the quality of everything, particularly dress and architecture, music, and attention. Little details bother them more. They expect to have a nice building, clean furniture, and to have a pastor who dresses at least cleanly and smartly and looks good. They have fewer rules, but they have higher expectations. They're less legalistic than the working class, but whatever they do, they demand high quality. High quality in education, high quality in music, high quality in worship, high quality in everything. They stress personal improvement. They want the church to tell them how to get ahead in life. They want experience that help them grow. They also expect the church to grow and think there's something wrong with us if we are not progressing upward. Upward mobility is an expectation of middle-class people. They are education-oriented. They want the church to teach them how to think as well as what to think. They favor classes which have lots of discussion and debate and will argue back with you when you tell them something. They see the pastor as a peer, not just as a leader. Many of them are professionals, and they see the pastor as another professional of another kind. They don't take the pastor's words on everything, although they do bow to his expertise about the Bible and about religion. But then they expect the pastor to prove himself on important things. They have opinions, and they want their opinion to be heard. The upper class is much smaller than the other two, but it is far more influential in the world. The upper class has been called the invisible class. Since they have no need to prove themselves, they do not show off their wealth or their influence. They are content to live without being noticed by ordinary people. They tend to favor small showings of wealth and private places of recreation, where their wealth and their status can be seen only by people who are also upper class. They tend to shy away from everybody else. They work for generational influence, long-term influence. Their goal is to maintain what they have achieved for many generations. So they set very long-term goals. They want their children to attend the best schools and use their influence to set them up in life. They have learned that influence is best accumulated by a family over a long period of time, and they patiently wait for that to happen. They insist upon quality in everything. They expect the best, and they get the best, and they usually have the money to get the best. They look for emotional investments. Upper-class people are not necessarily selfish or greedy. In fact, they have learned to take their status in society very seriously, and usually consider it as a responsibility. They are usually very generous, but they only want to give to things that they believe are good for society, and they have high standards of the kind of things they give to. They insist on knowing where their money goes, and they want to make sure it goes to worthwhile charities. Only the highest quality of charities are favored by the upper class. They expect to get their way. Oh, make no mistake, no matter how humble or friendly they appear, the upper class expects to be in control of everything. They are friendly and respectful to others usually, until others interfere with their purposes. If they have different ideas, they can be formidable enemies if you cross them. They tend to underestimate their own sinfulness. The upper class rarely sees themselves as sinners, but as judges of what is right and wrong for everybody else. Humility comes hard to them. They haven't been bred to it. That's why Jesus said it is harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, because they do not recognize the need for their own humility, and they seldom find it easy to bend. Upper class churches have certain characteristics. They are more tradition conscious than others. Since they focus on long-term goals and long-term liabilities, they favor historical long-term churches. Not short-term values. Newness is not necessarily a friend to the upper class. It's not necessarily an enemy, but it is certainly not a friend. They make their own rules. They do not take orders from anybody else. They tend to de-emphasize sin. They do not like to think of themselves as wrong. Often pastors are afraid to cross their generous donors by pointing out their faults. And so that gives them a lot of power to influence the pastor. They do emphasize responsibility, however, and they see there is a responsibility to help others. But not to do so is not really considered a sin. They give to causes, and they often give the highest percentage to charities and causes outside the church of any church. That is partially because they have the money to do it, but it's also because they have been raised to think of wealth as a responsibility. They expect the best pastor, and they can afford to buy one. They tend to look down on clergy as employees. They look at a pastor as basically as another employee. It is often hard for a pastor to lead such a church unless he or she comes from an upper-class background themselves. They must be able to impress people who are seldom impressed in order to lead them.
Again, let me emphasize that the class has no direct bearing on the income of the people who are making it. Nor do I mean to suggest that working class, middle class, or upper class people are better than other people. They are not. God has a plan for all people, despite in whatever their class or upbringing. As pastors, however, we need to understand the differences between classes in our society so that we can better minister to the people of various classes. Christ loves all people, and so should we. It is not up to us to judge people, but it is up to us to love them and to pray for them and to work to help them be better people and to share the Word of God and the message of salvation to all of them. That's the purpose of this lecture.